Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world, and whenever you are tuning into this video. My name is James Porcelli.
I'm Brian Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of the Ruthless Talk Podcast. Thank you. Lots of stuff to talk about. That is an
positive ship for AEW, too.
Positive, yes. AEW, WWE, you name it, guys. We're going to be talking all about it. We got AEW Revolution. We got NXT RoadBlock. Your boy was able to watch NXT RoadBlock from yesterday. That was live in Madison Square Garden. And we got Monday Night Raw. That's my immediate reaction, at least from watching majority of the show.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of go over some takeaways of the show. This won't be a full review show for both Revolution, of course, and for Monday Night Raw, but we will go over the main event, a main event that had a big said return for a big top superstar, and we will go over that show. We will go over that main event for Monday Night Raw. So make sure you guys, as always, man, kick back, relax while your boys drops the facts in this episode, as we got a lots to talk about. It's spring season, man. March Madness starts in a couple weeks. Baseball season is kicking into high gear. WrestleMania is right around the corner.
It's my favorite time of year, baby. My favorite time.
Probably one of the best times to be a sports and a wrestling fan combined. So there's no better time to kick things into high gear than it is right now. So why don't we jump into things, man? First thing that we will discuss is AEW Revolution. And speaking of AEW, we figured we'd also kind of change it up a little bit for today. At the end of our Monday Night Raw discussion, we will be going over some things from AEW Dynamite, which is right now. As of this recording, AEW Dynamite is going on right now. So we'll give some immediate thoughts and reactions of what's going on as of right now through Dynamite, as I have X, aka Twitter, on my phone, as I will be refreshing and seeing what's going on with the show. I'm not sure where they're at. I'm guessing they're still somewhere out West Coast, as I know Revolution was in LA. We will be talking about that towards the end of the show, so make sure you stay tuned for that as well, for our immediate reactions for AEW Dynamite, the post show for AEW Revolution. So AEW Revolution, let's jump into it, man. Of course, you know, Brian, you talked about it right before we started, man. This is another pay-per-view to where AEW pretty much kicks it and blows it out the freaking water.
Yeah, man.
Now, I have some takeaways, man, and this won't be a full review, but I do have some takeaways from this show. And, you know, obviously, of course, just to kind of just pull the Band-Aid off and just started it off right from the jump here. This show overall was pretty darn solid. It was a pretty darn solid show for the most part. There was obviously, of course, you know, we talk about the wrestling ability, the matches, the match quality, all of it was in this match. You had a little bit of everything. You had some crimson masks, you had weapons, you had freaking jackets, you know, freaking robes being stolen, right? You got all of this shit that happened this past Sunday. But first things first, man, I think it's only fair. My first takeaway, Toni Storm and Mariah May is now probably arguably the most memorable feud, just in AEW, but in pro wrestling in recent history. It's really just astonishing of how everything was able to come in full circle, right? And of course, it never was smooth sailing, right? There was, you know, after their first matchup, we didn't know where Mariah May's direction was going with the championship. She kind of just felt kind of like just another member on the roster. But then once Toni Storm started to come back, we kind of had a feeling like, oh, she was pulling the wool over everybody's eyes, trying to be the punk rock Toni Storm. And things, once she made that switch back to timeless Toni Storm, things were kind of like set sail towards that Grand Slam event. And then, of course, for this match at Revolution. I mean, this matchup was fantastic. I mean, I'm not going to speak any differently that hasn't already been said about this match. I mean, everything about this match was tremendous. Both of these ladies, you know, they earned my benefit of the doubt because of how well they were able to work together. They did tremendous. Obviously, Toni Storm winning was the absolutely the right call here. Really, really good stuff from both of these ladies, man. Just, again, not just in AEW or the women's division, or in the company, but just in pro wrestling as a whole, in women's wrestling as a whole, man. This was very, very refreshing. Over recent history, you don't really get many types of feuds like this in women's wrestling much. You get good wrestlers and talents, but feuds, like actual feuds and people and meshing people like this, this was very, very refreshing, man, in many different ways, at least a way or a feud that Tony Khan and this company was able to get right for majority of it. And you just let Toni Storm and Mariah May, you just let them rock. You just let them ride on all cylinders, and you just let them do their thing. So that's my first. And now, of course, we don't know what Mariah May is going to do now. We don't know what Toni Storm is going to do now. And I'll speak more about Toni Storm later. And then, Brian, I'll get to your thoughts in just a second. My second takeaway, and I have to mention this is kind of the downer portion of the show, the match order. The match order made absolutely no sense in this show, and I'm going to tell you why. You had Toni Storm and Mariah May in the smack middle of the show, like smack dead middle of the show, and then right after that, you had Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, and I'm thinking, like, you're putting the Steel's cage match right before the main event. It was, first of all, it was a very odd placement, but both of these matches, you want to talk about crimson masks and blood, you had that for back-to-back matches. And then, Brian, once you got to the main event, the crowd was, like, drained. I mean, they were done. And so for you to kind of put those two matches together, it just doesn't really make any sense, because what is that benefiting the main event to where
one of them should have started the show.
That's exactly what I'm saying, to where if you're not going to have Toni Storm and Mariah May main event this show, to where a lot of people said that they should have main evented this show. I'm not going to argue with anybody in regards to that, but I get it. It's your world championship for the men's roster, right? You want them to go last, and that's fine, but you got to do a better job spacing things out to where the blood and the crimson mask and getting gruesome is not like too much and it gets overexposed, if that makes sense. I just thought that was way too much for that LA crowd. And you heard it during that main event. By the time you get to that main event, this crowd is like, they're exhausted because the show is already going on for 3+ hours at this point. So I just thought that was just really bad placement. For some odd reason, AEW still has not gotten the match format down, like the order of the shows, or orders of these matches. So Toni Storm and Mariah May should have started off this match, and then you put Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher dead middle of the show, if that makes sense. And then same goes for MJF and Hangman Adam Page. And then if you still want to have the world title in your main event, cool, you'll do Mox and Cope. And speaking of that main event, this is kind of my second takeaway. And again, I didn't watch majority of this match. I know for a lot of people are just shitting all over this match if you're part of the IWC and the internet, the wrestling internet, because people are just not fond over Jon Moxley and this character and the Death Riders. They feel like it's a detriment to AEW. Here's what I will say. Wheeler Yuta was a big part of this match. This shtick with Wheeler Yuta is starting to run its course. It's really starting to become stale. Where, he might turn on the Death Riders, and then all of a sudden, he's face-to-face with Jon Moxley. Oh, just kidding. And he takes out the other set opponent. It's like we've been kind of doing the same regurgitated thing. So it's like, okay, we waited 3+ hours in a main event for that just to kind of have that same regurgitated type of shtick with Wheeler Yuta. It's just kind of weird. And who knows, maybe things change when we start talking about Dynamite later on in the show. But I'm just like, for you to save that in the main event, I'm just like, all right, whatever. The match seemed like it was still pretty darn solid. For the most
did you see
part.
the end of the match? Like how it acted, like the very end?
Cage, I saw Christian Cage cashed in his contract. And I believe it was I think it was Mox, obviously, of course, won the matchup, but I think it was it Christian Cage that tapped out or passed out or something like that? The way that
it was Christian. It
was Christian that caused the tap out.
What
are your takes about that, Brian? Because I know you watched majority of the matchup than I did. What were your takes about that?
So, I mean, I hear the point about Wheeler Yuta. I think, something needs to happen with him specifically here soon. Initial takeaways, well, first of all, okay, I loved it, especially the ending, and then the very, very ending, if you missed that part. So I thought, and still, I wish Cope would have won this. and even with Christian coming out there, because as the show ends, like, you know, and we've talked about this many times, like, you know, Edge and Christian or Cope and Christian, whether it's a feud individually or, you know, they go out as a tag, whatever, like that's coming, you know.
Right.
And even for me personally, like, just for I don't know, nostalgia purposes or whatever, like, a title is not needed in that feud, but I would have liked to see, you know, Cope, you know, he beats Mox, and then okay, you start this feud with Christian, you know, who has the cash in, right? But they didn't go that route. Did you see the very, very ending of it?
So
like, after.
So it's funny you mentioned that. I did not see it. Like I said, this was the only match on this card that I wasn't able to watch in full, but I did see like the results of this match as I'm looking at the results now from this match. So yes, so Christian Cage cashed in his contract to make this a 3-way matchup.
Right.
And I think that was the last of it that I saw, but I know that Jon Moxley won it by his bulldog choke, if that's correct in regards to that.
Yeah. But then, so Mox is leaving, you know, through the crowd, whatever, and Prince Nana shows up at the entranceway, and then out of nowhere, fucking Swerve, like
Swerve, okay.
He comes down and stomps Mox.
Okay.
So that's where I'm saying, like, I would have loved to see. We're still getting the Edge and Christian feud. I mean, that's going to be obvious because Christian just cost Cope the title, you know.
Yeah,
so
that's where Cope is going.
Cool, we're going to rock with that, and I'm all for that. And if you're strapping that rocket to Swerve now, I'm all for that. So
yeah,
I loved how this you know it ended.
Okay.
I would have preferred to see, you know, Cope win, but, you know, I'll take this. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no.
Let me speak on shit. Mariah and
Toni.
Toni.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Man, look, I've been holding out. Like, it's been coming. Like, Lita has been my favorite female wrestler for forever. And I know there's people who are technically better, all around better, but she's been it for me. The Attitude Era, where she was just, you know, and that was the era where it was all, you know, bikini matches and tits and ass, and hey, you know, they're beautiful women, but Lita was a little bit different, right? Fucking goddamn it, Toni Storm she is the fucking GOAT as of right now, 2025. Character work, you know, in-ring skills, promo, she has raised the fucking bar, period, for women's wrestling.
Can you imagine the amount of payday that Toni Storm can probably get now if they were to talk about a contract extension? Imagine how fat that contract.
And I also want to give flowers to Mariah May too, because as you had mentioned, like, she won that title, yeah, it was kind of like she was new and okay, what are we doing? But
yeah,
she has more than carried her weight and delivered at so. It takes two to tango, and this was a fantastic feud. Even to what they're doing in the ring, man. Like, I'm sorry, women's wrestling, like, you don't see that, right? Where they're dipping their knuckles in glass. You know, shout out to those women, man. And not saying you have to do all that kind of stuff, but just raising the bar, character work, in-ring skills, promo, a story. Like, that hit everything from top to bottom.
And it's funny.
It was awesome.
It's funny you mention that because, like, we talk about things that are, you know, unnecessary, like, you know, the glass and the crimson mask and getting bloody. But, like, it's believable when you have this type of story. It makes sense for it to get this gruesome because of how personal it is and how long this has been going on. So if you were to do, like, same with Hangman and Swerve, right? We're talking about a dude that burned his childhood house to the ground. So it would make sense to have, like, freaking, like, stabbing each other with, like, these needles to where your mouth gets
forks and numb, shit, or whatever they had.
Like 2x4s and all this shit, right? It's just like it makes sense. Sure, it's not needed, but at least it adds to the believability of the story, if that makes sense.
I meant to say it's not needed all the time, but in that match, in that moment, fucking perfect.
Absolutely. That's exactly
it was needed in that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's just Toni Storm is just, man, she's changed the game. She really has, man. And I hope people recognize that.
I'm sure. No, I'm sure she's beloved by a lot of wrestling fans right now, man. People see and they appreciate the work that Toni Storm has truly put in. When we talk about, man, like, characters, right? And people who, when characters are really good, when it feels authentic, majority of it is just people being themselves, right? Or just it's a tapped character that's a part of them, but it's times 10, right?
Yep.
And, for Toni Storm, like, listen, we always respect, the wrestler and what they do, but clearly, like, even in Toni Storm's NXT days, right, in WWE, and even when she first started in AEW, there was still something off, right? And we respected the work ethic that she has and her in-ring ability, but nothing about Toni Storm and who she is as a character didn't anybody care about. And now you add this character, and now you're given a reason, because now she's being herself. She's gelling into it, because now it's a character to where she can truly, what's the word I'm looking for? Be presented as own it. Exactly. Right. Because there's a lot of people, Brian, in wrestling that will try to play a character, but it's somebody that they're not, right? It's like, I'm trying to be this person that I know that I'm not. But if you can tap into a character that is part of your personality, like, that's where it feels authentic. That's where it feels believable, right? And a part of, with Toni Storm's shtick being, this very animated, right? Like, chin up, tits out, watch for the right? That whole freaking comedic shtick, right? I'm sure that's part of, like, her personality, right? And you add some little bit of layers. You mesh that with Toni Storm's actual personality and a little bit of a character change. Dude, it's she's gonna crush it, man. You know that. It's same with Roman Reigns, man. Roman Reigns, when he goes to the tribal chief shtick, you can see how much more confident he is, and the mannerisms and everything. They own it. It's like you say, they own the moment. They own that persona that is being presented to us fans, right? With the big dog character, it's like, okay, you're clearly trying to be somebody that you're not. You're trying to be this good guy. I'm all for, like, the company guy, like the smiles on everybody. Suffering succotash. Oh my God. Exactly. Like, like, we know for a fact, and that's why people were so, outspoken about Roman Reigns. Like, bro, like, you gotta change this character. Like, something's got to give. And then Roman Reigns finally stepped up. He walked into Vince McMahon's office. It's like, dude, we got to change it up, man. It's like, oh, but you're getting a reaction. But guess what? We can get a better one. We can get a better heel type of reaction if you flip me heel. And look what Roman Reigns is at now, bro.
And let me quickly say, so Toni Storm, back when she was the one, she was coming to the ring in the tank, right? Wasn't that her original kind of gimmick? Was that her?
Pretty much. The tank thing.
Yeah, was that her?
No, that's Shotzi. I think you're talking about. Like,
was Shotzi. Okay.
Mini tank. Yeah, that's Shotzi.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Never mind.
Toni Storm. Yeah, she was just like
I remember the Punk. Yeah, but I thought maybe it came out in a tank.
Shotzi also has like, it's also like a punk rock type of
right.
But she comes out in like this little mini tank or whatever. So yeah, that's Shotzi's gimmick. Yeah.
But even back then, and even to that punk rock Toni Storm gimmick, which I'm sure is part of her. It's just that thing, man. When you're, just when you let the person be them and let that creative juices flow out of them and what they can do. That's the difference between Toni Storm now and Toni Storm, the WWE punk rock, whatever she was,
Yeah.
And that's me here saying, like, even back then, like, I was like, what the fuck is, like, there's talent, I can see it.
Yeah.
But the character is not doing anything.
Right.
And now in what, 3, 4, 5 years, me personally, I really firmly believe she's the fucking greatest right now. And it's just because of that.
All of wrestling, forget women's wrestling. She's doing it.
She's up there.
She really is. And I mean, if we're just talking females, she's probably number one.
Oh yeah, females number one. Yep.
For sure. So, but yes, I mean, and I also loved the ending of the match, right, with the same shoe that Mariah May took out. So it's kind of going back those little details.
Stories.
That makes sense, right? Yep. And it kind of everything kind of comes back into like the Hollywood ending, right?
Even Luther being out there,
Luther being out there as well, right? So it was a really good match. Both of those two did their thing, but it was the story and how everything kind of came back into full circle, how the match ended. It was just great, man. It was chef's kiss. It was really, really good. Seriously. Now I'll get back to Cope here for just a second, as I have a couple more takeaways here. But so with Cope, right? So I actually don't mind Cope losing this match. I really don't, because from Jon Moxley, right? I get it. Guys, look, people for some odd reason are not fond over this Jon Moxley shtick and the Death Riders. And for Wheeler Yuta, I can kind of understand that, at least for that certain degree. But for Jon Moxley, man, it's just like, I think when it comes to AEW, Brian, and like the issues that AEW does have, the last thing that I would point to be an issue or to worry about AEW's, I guess, their shortcomings is Jon Moxley holding on to this world championship.
Or the Death Riders as a whole.
Death Riders as a whole, right? Sure, the story can be better, right? There's no question about it. Like, I'll be the first one to admit it. This story with Cope hasn't been the greatest. It really hasn't. So I understand that, but for us to just kind of point the finger at just at Jon Moxley and the Death Riders alone, it just comes across as a lazy type of move. You know what I'm saying? To where there's already so many other issues with this company. I think the last thing we need to worry about in this company in regards to, the issues that need to be fixed, it's Jon Moxley. I mean, I've always said this from the jump. I mean, this version of Jon Moxley, maybe not be world champion in this type of era, but he would crush it in the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression era, this type of shtick. I mean, the believability in his words and how he cuts promos. And I get it. Is he the best wrestler? No, but he doesn't need to be, guys. There's so many wrestlers back in the day that didn't need to be a Bret Hart or a Shawn Michaels, right? You leave that to those fucking people. But it's other wrestlers like a Jon Moxley and people, like frickin' an Ultimate Warrior, people like a Hulk Hogan, right? They weren't the best in-ring performers, but they didn't need to be because they checked off. Go ahead, Brian.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Stone Cold, man. By the time Stone Cold got to WWE and that shtick, he could no longer do, like, he is a fantastic wrestler, but he couldn't do the shit anymore because of his knees and his back and his neck that he could do back in his early days in WCW, where he was really a good technical wrestler, man.
Yeah,
and and his shtick, it was a brawler, and he didn't have to be
exactly, guys. It's like we're trying to put in-ring wrestlers now on a pedestal because all we just see is banger matches and 5-star classics. Like, fuck, it's ridiculous. This is why I can't, people from Fightful and Dave Meltzer who rank these star matchups. It's just I don't take it seriously because I don't care about sometimes the in-ring move sets and all that stuff, but it's the storytelling, the characters involved. Does it make sense? The spots in the match that call for the story to begin with. It's those types of things. And no doubt this story with Cope has not been the greatest at all. It has been redundant. It has been very lackluster. But in regards to just putting the blame on Moxley and the Death Riders, it's just very weird. It's just very odd. But I do like Moxley defending this title. I mean, for him to lose to, let's face it, with Adam Copeland, he's 50 plus years old. For Mox to be the guy, to Cope to be the guy to dethrone Moxley, who's now this revamped character, like he's taking over the company with this new set group, and he loses to a 50-plus-year-old Adam Copeland. Get it. It's still Adam Copeland. I get it.
Right.
But, I don't know, man. For you to try to build up a death... Moxley would have been, honestly... I don't want to say would have been done, but his credibility would have been... there would have been a lot of damage to his credibility, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I'm honestly not... I'm not mad, or I actually don't mind Mox winning this or defending his title, as I had a feeling he was going to, as I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. Because like you said, now he's with Christian Cage. It seems like they're going to resume that. The question is, do people still care about Christian and Adam Copeland because of how long that gap has been since the last time they've encountered? Because we do live, Brian, in a microwavable society. It's stop and go. So I don't know, man. Like, can you revamp that spark that they first had when freaking Christian Cage said on live television, "Go fuck yourself"? It's a freaking Copeland. Can you revamp that spark? It's like that's what I'm saying, man. Like when that happened, like that's when that whole interaction was at its peak, right? And they've done a lot of stuff, right, with the TNT title and all that stuff. So what else? Because they've had multiple matches now, so it's going to be interesting to see what else they can tap into. But I guess, it's Christian Cage and Edge, fuck it. I'm still calling them Edge, guys. I don't give a fuck. But it seems, we'll see what they can still do, as I'm sure, they know each other very well. We know their history. So maybe they still have some untapped potential that they can still tell later on in their career. And yeah, the Prince Nana thing, again, shout out to my guy, Prince Nana. Once again, shout out to him. And Swerve Strickland. I mean, Swerve Strickland winning was the right call. Shout out to Ricochet. Him and Swerve did put on a really solid matchup.
Hey,
I really liked how the kind of similar how, like, we talk about way back when with McIntyre and Punk and fighting over a bracelet. It sounds silly, but if you tell it right and you let the wrestlers do their thing, it actually can work. And for this robe, right, that Prince Nana is trying to fight back for, is this one of the greatest things ever in AEW television? No, but it works. It makes sense. And it's consistent. And you add that and then you add the really good quality match with Swerve and with Ricochet. It fits. It all kind of comes together. So the interactions with Nana and Swerve, I thought recently have been doing a really solid job. Now, I can also see this, Brian, to where, you did the story really well, right? You added all this tension with Nana and Swerve, and then it ended with just Nana and Swerve just being best friends again, like nothing ever happened. I can kind of see where people are coming from with that, because I have seen that from recent people. And we'll see what happens with Dynamite tonight and moving forward. Maybe they do tap into a turn or a split between these two in the near future. I don't know. Because, I mean, let's face it. I think we can all agree now with Swerve Strickland, he doesn't need a mouthpiece anymore of how well he can kind of rock in regards to his mannerisms and everything. Again, he's not the greatest talker, but I think his mannerisms, and I think he hits his bullet points pretty well. He's I'm not going to pick on Ricochet. I've done enough with that with Ricochet and his mic skills. But again, I get it with Ricochet. Like, his gimmick is not meant to be taken seriously, but you can't mesh that with him going after a world title. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. Like, you can't do that, man. So Swerve,
what does he do? I can't even do it.
That fucking laugh. It's so, like, I don't know. It's like he's trying so hard to be like hated. It comes across so forced, man. There's something about it. So listen, he put on a really good match, man, with Swerve. Him and Swerve did their thing in this matchup. But this was the right call, Swerve, and you got Mox. Now the question is, does Swerve get back his championship over Jon Moxley? Who knows? You still got Hangman Adam Page, who's still a worthy contender, as he defeated MJF. They also put on a decent matchup. There was, again, all these matchups were pretty darn solid for what they were. And let me get to Mercedes, right? This is where I kind of go back to Toni Storm. This was my other takeaway from this pay-per-view. Mercedes Moné needs a storyline ASAP. She just does, man. Listen, this matchup with what was her name, Brian? I'm forgetting her name, or at least
I didn't even see the match on Revolution. So
the matchup was fine. I mean, again, Mercedes wrestling is like, again, it's like clockwork. I mean, she doesn't have to think about it. She just does it, and it's a masterpiece. She can go out there with a broomstick, and people will freaking love it. At least in regards to her in-ring work. And I get it, right? She's a big fan of anime. She loves Japanese wrestling. She loves New Japan Pro Wrestling. But with Mercedes, man, like, that's not where the money is in regards to what she's involved in and how you evolve her character and storylines, right? And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But at this point for Mercedes, right, to where you have the rest of this women's division, like outside of maybe Harley Cameron, which I don't even know. Harley Cameron's, after the whole matchup with Mercedes at Grand Slam, her steam has not gotten up. It's kind of just been not down, but just straight up just been flatlined. Outside of her, like, who's taking this title from Mercedes? Because eventually, Brian, she's going to have to lose this title to somebody.
Sure.
Because at some point, Brian, you know, like for Toni Storm, right? We talk about, oh, who's going to be Toni Storm's opponent in the near future? I'm telling you guys, man, AEW All In this July, it's got to be Mercedes and it's got to be Toni Storm. There is no other matchup on any other stage to do that matchup than in Texas for AEW All In. And that is going to be the matchup that Mercedes needs in regards to storytelling and working with a really good face right now in regards to Toni Storm. And it's going to be somebody like Toni Storm who is going to continue to gain that momentum in her character because of what she's involved in by putting her with a really good heel against Mercedes Moné. Right. And that's just it. So that has to happen at some point. Like, she's going to have to lose these titles at some point because Mercedes is too good to just feel like an afterthought. Because let's be honest, when you go look back at this pay-per-view, you're going to be like, oh, that's right. Mercedes had a matchup with so-and-so, whatever the hell her name is. Again, that's no disrespect to her, but I mean, she's just too damn good, man. I love the fact that she's holding on to all these titles. You know, you can say it's forced, you can say it's this and that, but I mean, she's arguably the best professional wrestler. I'm talking in-ring performer on this fucking planet. So it's believable.
She's one of them. Yep.
She's one of them right now. So eventually she's going to have to lose these titles. And at some point she's going to have to catapult herself to the main roster. And there's no better way, Brian, than for her to be feuded with Toni Storm. And you do it at AEW All In. And speaking of AEW All In, I'm going to continue my takeaways. Kenny Omega, who won the international championship from Takeshita. You had Okada defending his championship. Do we get Omega and Okada at AEW All In? That seems like the direction that they're going. You know, we've seen teases in the past in regards to those two. I mean, let's face it too, right? We talk about Okada and what some diehard wrestling fans want to see Okada be a part of. It's another big matchup with Kenny Omega because of their history in New Japan and everything. So, and again, what better stage to do that at than AEW All In? There's really no other stage to do it. And that's pretty much it, man. Overall, again, this was a solid show. Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher put on a really solid steel cage matchup. I just thought the placement, I thought the blood and the gruesome was too much though. Because I'm like, all right, I get it. They have history and everything, but we're not talking like Toni Storm and Mariah May type of beef and type of banter, right? So I thought that was just a little bit much. And because of the fact that it was back to back and it's not helping the main event because, again, the crowd in LA was drained at that point. So the placement of these matches was just not good. I'm sorry, they're just not. AEW has to do a much better job with that. But outside of that, and maybe some other nitpicks, this was a decent show, as AEW always puts on decent pay-per-views at the end of the day. So, Brian, any final takeaways, man, with AEW Revolution?
I'll go back to the main event, man, the Mox and Coat match, because this is how I see it playing out. And, you know, I mentioned it a couple podcasts ago where I feel like AEW is in this position where it just, there's so many things that remind me of the ending of the territory days. And I don't, you know, spend much time on the internet. It kind of took me back where you were saying people were, you know, kind of complaining about the Death Riders or Mox or whatever.
A lot of people are not fond over this group. It's very interesting. Yeah, but continue.
This is the way I see it, man. And you got to think about all the people who are in Tony's cons here who do have history of the knowledge of the business and territory days and whatever. And this is just how I see it, man. We're like, okay, so Cope loses, you know, and that's fine. I could take it or leave it. I think it's going to be a great feud between him and Christian. So cool. But to me, the Death Riders are essentially the Four Horsemen, right? and you throw in, Maria Shafir. She could be like the female, but like JJ Dillon was also with the Four Horsemen, a manager mouthpiece, but she's a female and can kick your ass. So you got them, right? And I'm not saying the storyline is exactly the same or even as good, or if you could even get as good as what the Four Horsemen was back in the day. But you got this dominant heel faction that can be more dominant and ruthless. And I like the mix of the faction itself. You go back to those territory days when you had the Horsemen, right? And Dusty Rhodes was kind of, he was getting older. He was coming out of the title picture. So you could take that as, they're throwing in a Mox or whoever, Mox or not Mox, Cope, whoever Mox defended it so far against, right? But at that time in the territory days, they were looking for the new guy. And I don't know if you heard of this guy, but Magnum TA was going to be that guy. A horrible car accident, things had to change, and it was years before Sting enters the picture and then takes the, goes against the Horsemen. Yeah. That's what they're doing with Swerve. Like and it's beautiful. I love it. I fucking love it. If this is what they're doing, you got the Death Riders and Mox the champion. Swerve is the #1 contender. He just beat Ricochet, got the road back. The only thing I'll say is he's going up against a faction. He's going to need some backup. Is that the Hurt Syndicate? Somebody else, here and there? I don't know. But the outline of kind of where I hope they're going with this, or what I see, is that, you got this established champion, Mox. Well, he's not Ric Flair. He is a vet, and they got a dominant heel faction. And you got a somewhat, although Swerve isn't the youngest guy, but he's on the come up. And he's the guy that is going to he's the guy to beat Mox. As far as right now, he is the guy to take that title for Mox. And so if that's the route they're going, I have no issue with how that pay-per-view ended. I think it's great for Cope and Christian. Yeah. And I think it's great for Swerve and Mox and the Death Riders. So I really fucking loved it, man. I don't know why all the hate is for the Death Riders and Mox, but for right now, at least in AEW, as far as the champions and the factions they've tried to have, even if it's the Elite or whatever, like, I'm sorry, this has been the best faction, so far that AEW's produced, I think. Right. So
I can also say the Hurt Syndicate as well. I mean, they've also been booked pretty prominently.
They're kind of they haven't done much.
Yeah, that's what I mean too. Like it's debatable for both factions because they got titles. They're portrayed.
But now again, if there's some kind of alliance with Swerve and the Hurt Syndicate against the Death Riders, fuck yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Now, they have been portrayed as a heel group, so it'd be interesting of how you would turn them back to a face. And they are a very new faction, so it'd be interesting timing to do that. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, it makes sense.
And it doesn't have to be the Hurt Syndicate. I'm just throwing them out there. I mean, it could be just some. There's going to be somebody, and it has to be somebody like of already established stature, right? That's going to have Swerve's back in this. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't fucking, can't be like Brian Cage or some shit.
No, it's not gonna. No, him and was it Lance Archer? They're doing their thing as I forget what their new tag team name. What is their new tag team name?
I don't know.
Who the fuck cares? I guess I don't. I actually like Lance Archer. I really do.
No, I do too. Yeah,
I really like Lance Archer. The dude, like him and Jake Roberts, man, was such a good tandem. Yes. And they decided to put fucking Jake Roberts with a bunch of cruiserweights. Like, what are you doing? Like him and Lance Archer, like that's peanut butter and jelly, bro. Like, how do you fuck that up, man?
Speaking of Jake Roberts, I mean, like. Again, I don't know contracts or whatever, or just if there's anything for him, but I don't know how you don't. If you have that guy under contract and you can use him as a mouthpiece, a manager, or whatever, how do you not use that guy?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I really don't know. But yeah, man. I mean, look, this pay-per-view was solid.
It was good,
Very,
yeah.
very solid pay-per-view. For the most part, definitely a lot more good than bad in this pay-per-view. Again, if you love good wrestling matchups, if you love good stuff, then that's AEW again with pay-per-views. Like that's your bread and butter.
Yeah.
But like we always talk about
pay-per-views, they knock it out of the park most of the time.
And like we always talk about, it's how they now follow up with all of these stories and all these potential stories, these new feuds, like what are you going to do with Toni Storm? How are you going to keep Toni Storm's title reign alive, like her spark alive? What are you going to do for Mariah May that you're going to continue to evolve her stature to keep her, relevance and to keep her, interested to many fans like she was in this Toni Storm feud. So it's going to be interesting how they go about it.
Yeah, I was going to get ready to say, Toni Storm and Mercedes, that's got to happen.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, for the meantime, even a Mariah May and Mercedes, but they are both heels. So
yeah. I'll say, so who knows, man? Who knows? I mean, there's Giulia Hart, right? There's frickin' shit, man. Willow Nightingale. Frickin' who else? Serena Deeb, I believe. Hikaru Shida. So many other female. I wish I had the female roster right now. Statlander, yeah. Her booking was very fucking weird, and how the whole Stokely Hathaway thing and how they just completely just changed that was so odd. So who knows, man? And that's the thing about Mercedes, and for whoever wins this title, it's just like, all right, you're just gonna pluck somebody to be the gal to defeat frickin' Mercedes, right? And it's just like, okay, they win the championship, cool, but it's just like, it's kind of like how Chris Statlander defeated Jade Cargill when Jade Cargill was CBS champion. It's gonna be that exact same thing. It's like, she won the title and then she did nothing with it after that. You could have that in Harley Cameron, but again, her booking has not gotten going forward. It's just been flatlined recently ever since the matchup at Grand Slam. But who knows, man? Like I said, we'll keeping taps on AEW Dynamite later on this show, but let me get into NXT RoadBlock, man. We'll kind of just jump into that as I have some brief takeaways about NXT RoadBlock, man. This was in Madison Square Garden last night. My first takeaway, man, is this new faction. This new faction that's come onto the scene again. I still don't know the name of this faction. I don't know who any of these fucking people are. They're like a mesh of Sanity, freaking Retribution, and the Shield, and it just comes off very just I can't take it seriously to a degree. It's just very silly, honestly. It just comes off silly. I don't know what their motives are. They've now been on NXT television for the last couple of months now, maybe a month or so, and we still don't really know what their motives are. So hopefully they do that sooner rather than later, because if you don't tap into this group and why they're doing things and why they're doing it, then they're just creating chaos for the sake of it. You didn't really give any of an explanation of why they went after Oba Femi, and never really kind of went back to that at all. And now they just attacked Javon Evans after his matchup against Ethan Page. So I just don't understand the motive of what's going on, right? There was always a motive with factions, right? With Evolution, with the Shield, with Degeneration X, with Nexus, like so many of these factions.
NWO.
Right? They all had a purpose and a motive. I don't know what the purpose or the motive is for this faction. They're just beating people up and just causing chaos. It's like Triple H booking brawls nonstop every single week. So, and speaking of Javon Evans and Ethan Page, let me get into them. This is probably right now, as far as feud of the year in NXT, this is it right here. It's Javon Evans and it's Ethan Page, man. Both of these two have done tremendous work. Ethan Page has been the star of this NXT men's division. He has been the only guy that has any type of interest in regards to what he's involved in, and that includes with Javon Evans. And Javon Evans, man, this was his calling card. This entire feud with Ethan Page, and I can thank Ethan Page to the high heavens, man, because this dude is a vet, and he continues to prove it to everybody why he's a vet and why at some point he should be on the main roster in the near future. Because you don't want to have this dude just sit around NXT for too long, because then he's just going to feel like he's kind of just overstating his welcome, if that makes sense. But both of these two did their thing in their matchup. I'm guessing that's now the payoff. Who knows what Ethan Page is going to do? I guess he's going to feud with Ricky Saints. I guess that's
so. Did Javon? Who won? Yeah, I didn't see it.
So Javon Evans won the match.
Javon's won. Okay.
Javon did like the springboard cutter onto a chair, right? Because the whole freaking spiel of the story is, taking away Javon Evans' smile. So now Javon Evans takes away Ethan's smile by like almost shattering his mouth in with the cutter onto the steel chair, and that was the end of the match. So it was a really good matchup. Again, Javon Evans. Ethan Page brought the best out of Javon Evans in this feud, and hopefully now Javon Evans can take that momentum and he can now pretty much run with it at this point. So, but really good stuff from both of them. Moose and Oba Femi, man, put on a tremendous performance. I really, really liked this matchup a lot, man. We talked about, Brian, like a Worlds Collide event, right? I talked about Oba Femi and Moose. It's not a Worlds Collide event, but here you got freaking NXT Roadblock. You got this matchup. I mean, you want to talk about a tank colliding with the cement truck. This was this match. This was really
Meaty
good.
Man slapping meat.
Pretty much. Shout out to Big E. That's exactly right. So look, man, Oba Femi, I'm not going to lie, man. I still need to see more of this dude. I'm not like captivated by him, but I'm slowly starting to dig Oba Femi a little bit. I really am. I still need to see more. I'm not, sold. I'm like, oh, yep, like that dude's the future star. Like he's gonna be winning world championships. He's gonna be one of the top stars in the main roster. I'm not there yet, but I do like where he's at. I like the way he's been booked in NXT since he's been there. And working with somebody like Moose, who's a vet, he really made Oba Femi look really, really strong and really, really good in this match. So really like that a lot as well. Jordynne Grace, this woman needs to be on the main roster sooner rather than later at this point. Because she is so She is so damn good, man. She's so freaking good. She is a powerhouse. She is an she's built like an ox. She's just so damn good in the little things that she does as well. And who knows where she now goes from here in regards to now unifying both titles, as they just unified both the NXT Women's North American title and the NXT Women's title. I'm going to get to that in just a second. But Jordynne Grace, man, hopefully she doesn't stay too long in NXT because with NXT Women's roster, man, like they're going to be fine. They got so much talent, so much tap potential with people like Jada Parker, people like Kalani Jordan, people like Sol Ruka, and so many other different, female talents, right? So, but, she's probably going to be there for the foreseeable future. She probably will be in that NXT women's title picture at some point. Who knows? They might not even waste time, Brian, and they might put her in that freaking title picture starting freaking next week, probably, or at least maybe in the discussion in regards to storytelling. But yeah, Jordynne Grace, man, is tremendous. And I just hope that she doesn't waste too much time in NXT and who knows? I mean, with the booking in the women's division, shit, maybe she's just better off in NXT, honestly, because the way the women division, outside of course, Bianca and Naomi and the performance they put on, and that's just from those two alone, that has really nothing to do. Some of it has to do with creative, but majority of it is just the talents just rocking out. Outside of that, man, the women's division on the main roster is booked like absolute garbage. And we're going to get to Monday Night Raw. That's just an example of it. But and my final takeaway, man, I'll just end it with this. Giulia and Stephaine Vaquer, that was the main event. Stephaine Vaquer is now both your NXT Women's North American Champion and your NXT Women's Champion. Now, Giulia was supposedly injured going into this match. So I don't know if this was an audible called to where, because I was surprised the fact that Stephanie won this match. And then I heard about this injury and I'm thinking they probably had to switch and made a second decision to give Stephaine Vaquer the match. And for Giulia, who I don't know, maybe she's going to take time off. We don't know much about this injury. It's just a rumor that she has developed an injury before this matchup even started. So, because I was expecting Giulia to win this match and to be the double champion, but they gave it to Stephaine Vaquer. So we'll see what happens there. And probably Jordynne Grace is once again just coming off of a victory over Roxanne Perez is going to be now in that discussion. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes, man, as the NXT women's division, man, is pretty is once again pretty stacked with
It's
talent.
Pretty stacked, yeah.
But but it also comes down to what you're doing with all these talents as well, and that comes up comes down to HBK and his creative. So, NXT Roadblock. I mean, listen, you also had the Hardy Boys and Fraxium. The Hardy Boys ended up defeating Fraxium in this matchup. So, yeah, man, this was a card going into it that I actually was really looking forward to, and all these matches, or at least majority of these matches, really didn't disappoint. Jordan Grace, it was just good to see Jordan. I would say that was kind of maybe the downer match. And if that's the downer match, then that's saying something about this card. Because, Of course, you had the Javon Evans and Ethan Page matchup, their trilogy or their final conclusion of their story, right? You had the Oba Femi Moose match. You had this title unification match. So it was this mini little pay-per-view. So yeah, man, overall, it was solid, man. It was a solid show. I saw a lot more good than bad in the show, at least in the matchups. It's for Stephaine Vaquer, definitely was an interesting decision, but because of the injury, I guess that makes sense of how severe Giulia's injury is, but I guess time will only tell. But so yeah, that is NXT Roadblock, man. So I'm sure we'll talk more about NXT as well in the near future, but those are my overall takes on NXT Roadblock. And now Monday Night Raw. Let's talk about it. So Brian, I did enough talking, at least for NXT. I'll have you start just before we get to the main event, as we got a lot to talk about in the main event. But just main takeaways, man, that you were able to watch in regards to Cody Rhodes, the ladies, Io Sky, Rhea, Bianca. Any takeaways you have, man? What were your thoughts outside of the main event, of course, on this show?
So I'll start with the women, right? Bianca, Rhea, and Io. I don't know, man, because at least, like, once all three of them were in the ring, right? I mean, you could see it happen. Io just faded into the background, and she was irrelevant. She's the fucking champion, and she was irrelevant. And yes, she did come back and like slap them both and whatever, but it's
very weird. That was really weird, bro. Like how they're booking Io Sky. They had her do this shit before, to where like she just goes, like, she starts wailing her arms and she starts acting like a fucking loon in a loony bin. She did this with like Damage Control, when Damage Control was like on a downward spiral after the Bailey feud, and she was just like screaming backstage just every fucking week. And now here she is. She's just like screaming in Japanese or like in her native. I'm like, what are you fucking
Which I don't even really mind that part of it. It's just she's a transitional champion. Like it's even with that and her coming back and slapping them in the face, like, she's losing that Mania. She's not retaining that title. I don't know how it happens or whatever, but so that's kind of what it's just like.
That's what I mean. Like that's what I mean about like the screaming and like all that stuff. It comes across just weird and kind of goofy because of the fact that she's just being pushed to the side as your champion. That's what I kind of mean in regards to it. Let me touch on that. I mean, guys, these are all faces in the fucking ring. How? Like, bro, this is what I fucking mean, man. Like, I don't understand the obsession with face-offs, like freaking face versus face, heel versus heel. You had guys all faces in the ring. You have your champion that's legit getting pushed to the side. She was an afterthought, Brian, like you said. I mean, like, just have Rhea and Bianca if you want to do that matchup, right? It's the first matchup with those two. You do it at WrestleMania, It's just, I don't understand. It's like Triple H wants to do two things. He either wants to create a shock factor just for the shock factor, and he also wants to please the crowd all the time, right? Because people were clamoring about Io Sky. Why? What's her WrestleMania plans? Why is she not in the main event? Why does she not have a title? And then frickin' Triple H, being Papa H that he is, right, or that he tries to be, let me give Io Sky this championship. And all this did is just blur the lines.
Muddy the waters.
The waters, and everything is a mess. Now, again, I'm not going to complain about Io Sky holding on to a title.
Right.
Because I love Io Sky. But it's how you are going about things with putting 3 fucking faces. At least there's a title to fight for, because the other triple threat we're going to get into, that's a whole bunch of what the fuck. I don't understand it. So going back to this, right? It doesn't make sense, guys, to where you're splitting your audience, right? It doesn't make sense at all. There's 3 faces in this segment. They're all, Io Sky is slapping each one of them. She's an afterthought in the segment. It was all about Rhea and Bianca because they pushed her aside like she's a child.
Literally pushed her to the back. Yeah.
Stay in your lane while the adults talk. That was Io Sky's booking. And then you add that with her just like doing this. I don't know. It's just like this random, like just again, wailing her arms and like going berserk. Like he's like, oh, I'm the champion. Like that's what she was doing. It just comes across silly when you add this into it. It was so fucking stupid, man. Yep. Any other takeaways, Brian, from the show?
I'll let you. I mean, my other main takeaway was the main event, but I mean, you go ahead and get into that, man. I mean, that's right. Those 2 were my main takeaways. I
guess I got a lot of takeaways, man. We'll save the main event for the main event. So
sure.
Where the fuck do I start, man? Let me start off. Let me start with Logan Paul. I guess I'll just start off with him, right? So
all right, James. I'm just playing.
I had a feeling.
No, go ahead, man.
Gonna say something. Listen, I'll rip the Band-Aid off for you, Brian. We're just gonna get it out the way. It's gonna be painful, but we're just going to get it out the way, right? Anyway, so Logan Paul, this was really weird. And again, I don't mind Logan Paul. I really don't. But this segment was weird. You had him in, you have pretty much already, Brian, a part-time celebrity interacting with another celebrity in a segment. And the only
shout out to Andrew Schultz, though. If y'all don't know who he is, he's funny as shit, man. Shout out to Andrew.
Actually, I've heard of some of his stuff. Yeah. I don't know about him, but I've seen like clips of like, again, thanks to TikTok and Instagram, I know of him. I don't know much of him. Yeah, he wore the nice freaking New York Knicks freaking jacket. Shout out to him.
He's a New Yorker through and through, man. Yeah.
So, but it was just very weird, man. So like you dedicated this TV time to a celebrity. And already a part-time celebrity. You know what? Triple H, he's like a mark for celebrities, bro. Have you noticed that? Like he's like Travis Scott's and the Jelly Rolls, right? And all of this shit. Like it's fucking weird. I don't know if it's also a TKO thing or just.
I think that's probably.
Because
I don't know if it's so much Triple H.
I would say it's Triple H. It's probably a group thing. I don't know. But again, I point to Triple H because he has the final say in all of this. But it's weird, right? Because I get it. You're trying to portray a certain demographic. That's pretty much what it is for people who know these people. I completely understand it. But guys, if it's not developing a story like I Show Speed, right? When he was in the Royal Rumble, that was no harm, no foul. It was for like a funny little shtick. This was to get us more excited about Logan Paul and AJ Styles.
AJ Styles. Yeah.
It didn't really do that. It was just AJ Styles came in for the save. Logan Paul walks away. AJ Styles is like, hey, this is New York City. Come back, Logan. And he raises Andrew Schultz's arm, and that was it. And Logan Paul's like, all right, I did my duties for the day that Triple H told me to do. Where's my private jet? I'm going to go back to LA. I'm going to go back to my mansion. All right, I'm done. Cool story, AJ. But I'm just going to walk to the back. Sorry. So that's what this segment was. It was just very weird to where you put this celebrity on the show to develop a story between Logan and Styles. I don't understand how, guys, this is getting us more excited about Logan Paul and potentially AJ Styles in a matchup. Now, I will say this. Logan Paul versus AJ Styles, that makes a lot more sense than Logan Paul versus like a CM Punk or a John Cena, which I know that was rumored about. So there's no doubt about it. This is a better case scenario.
And they're going to hit, or even Logan. I mean, I'm sure he's going to hit, a couple like jaw-dropping moves, and that, especially with a guy like AJ and what they can do in the ring. Sure, it's going to look good. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And that's, again, the match we talk about, like the banger matches, right? The 5-star matches, right? There's no doubt AJ Styles is obviously like he's even at his age, bro. He's still got it in spades. He's in tremendous shape. And Logan Paul, again, I know people don't like Logan Paul, but the dude is tremendous. At least for in-ring performances, he hasn't been that great on the microphone recently. He really hasn't been. His zingers and his
sucks.
Promos.
He fucking sucks. And look, he does have the athletic ability to pull it off in the ring, but that's the part where this can it's not.
Yeah.
This ain't fucking 2010 and you're trying to connect to 13-year-olds on the internet. You know?
Yeah.
This is a different ball game, homie. And he ain't it.
There's something that's just off with his promos. It's just not like his zingers and his lines are just not hitting as they
corny
used
as shit.
to.
They're corny.
They
as
are
shit.
coming off as a little corny. I'm not gonna lie. And you just mesh that with how you're trying to get us excited about this match. And I'm sorry, Triple H, it's not working. It didn't work at all. Nobody gives a shit. They don't give more of a shit about an AJ Styles Logan Paul match than they did before this.
And here's the thing: do you think Logan goes over at Mania? That would really suck for AJ just returning, but like I could see that fucking happening, man. And like, what kind of bullshit is this?
I have to think more about that. Because AJ Styles just came back too, which also made this segment weird as well. Because he just came back, and this is what you're doing with Styles. At least how for him to interact with Logan, it was weird. But
like AJ Styles should be, I'm not saying he has to be, but he's a guy that you got him. He's a guy that should be in and around the main event title picture. So and
or dude, him and LA Knight last year. Remember that freaking home invasion brawl with LA? Like, dude, just do shit like that with LA Knight. He doesn't even need, like, I say this all the time. You don't need to just throw a championship on somebody just because of maybe their history and who they are and how people like them, and they think that they're deserving of a championship. No, just put them in a story that we care about and that we're emotionally invested into. And you didn't do that.
Well, when I say that, it doesn't have to be a championship, but I think like AJ Styles, at this point in his career, winding like, and yes, you can talk about like, teaching the new generation and whatever. And yes, he's doing that too. But like, I'm sorry, he needs to be in there with the main eventers. Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. And,
I agree with you there. Yeah, no, you're not just going to have AJ Styles waste his last 2 years of his wrestling career, because he did say that by age 50, he's not wrestling anymore. So yeah, you're not going to waste that by having him, like go over and put over the younger talent, right? Like the Logan Pauls and all this. But no, absolutely not, man. AJ Styles is too fucking good for that. So I agree with you in regards to that. But yes, championship or no championship, mainly, again, the championship's not needed. Just put him with somebody and just put on a good story, because I know deep down that AJ Styles can not only put on a good performance, but if you book it right, he can still rock out, man. Just make us care. You know what I'm saying? It's just, and this segment didn't do that. You did all of this and it achieved absolutely nothing. It just absolutely nothing. Cody Rhodes' promo. Let me talk about that real quick. So I guess this is trying to continue to pump up John Cena and him. Now he's going to be on Monday Night Raw the next 3 weeks, starting next week on the 17th. So let me talk about this, Brian, because, people love to talk about record revenue, right? And ticket sales and all this stuff. I don't know if you caught this, Brian, but Cody Rhodes talked about attendance numbers. He's like, we got 17,000 some odd people in Madison Square Garden. And right away, you hear both Michael Cole and Pat McAfee say, oh, no, it's 20,000 people, right? And like, because you have Triple H is like screaming into their headset, like, oh, like, no, it's not 17,000 people. It's 20,000 people. Because, guys, here's the reality. This company loves to overinflate how many numbers they have. They do it all the time, bro. If you think that
they've been doing that forever. WrestleMania 3 at the Silverdome, Pontiac Silverdome, and they said it was like 93,000. It was a shit ton of people, but it wasn't 93,000.
That's what I mean.
Because they were like, "Oh, we set the record." No, it wasn't.
Right. And but they've been promoting all these sellouts, but they haven't been selling out. So you want to promote all these sellouts when in reality you're just pretty much overinflating the numbers to where if WWE guys gives you a certain number, subtract that by like 2,000 to 4,000, like for every number. If they say 20,000, take away like 3,000 people.
So you as a New Yorker, I've never been to MSG to see an event inside, but what's the capacity there? Probably about 25,000 maybe at capacity?
Somewhere around there. Actually, I think it's more than that. Actually, it could be. Actually,
probably 25, 30, somewhere in there.
25 to 30,000 actually probably is the capacity in MSG. But still, man, it's weird.
So you're talking about 17 to 20,000, like. No, that's not a sellout, homie.
Right, exactly. So it's actually okay. So I'm looking at it now. The Beyond is actually only 19,500 people. So it's right around So at least that's what I first was able to look up. So right around, you could say, I guess, rounded up to about 20,000 people, somewhere around there, right? So, but yeah, man, this is what I mean, man. Like, we want to like freaking just stroke the what out of this company because they're making all this money and see people are attending these shows. No, they're not, right? Like, look at these numbers and metrics, bro. I got so many numbers and metrics that I've posted about Monday Night Raw over the last several weeks, bro. We want to talk about this company in a boom period. There's no fucking boom period. People have been leaving the show live because there's nothing else to see because the product is going backward. And it's more expensive, of course, but the productivity, though, the productivity of people, you had over I think the number, I have the number in my phone somewhere, but you had a certain amount of people, and that number has now gone down since the debut show on Netflix. Since then, the number has gone down. I think it started like 5 million some odd, and now it's at like hovering over under 3 million at this point now. That's what I mean, man. Like, if people, Brian, want to watch something, they will tune in. Like, if you look at numbers and measure, I'm telling you, but the fact that the product, we talk about this product not living up to expectations for WrestleMania season, and you look at these numbers, and again, I have these numbers, and I'll prove it to you guys right now. I'll try to find these as I still have them in my notes here, but we talk about that, and it's just like, it's like we say that wrestling is in a boom period, and we look at these numbers, we look at metrics, and we see that even merchandise sales are going down, ticket sales are going down, right? They're not making much record revenue as we originally thought. What else does this have? So you want to overinflate ticket sales and finances because outside of The Rock and John Cena's heel turn productivity, that's all you got, right? So we're going to overinflate everything. I see. And you're right, Brian. They've done this for freaking years. I totally get it. But at least the product way back when, way before I was watching, before I was even fucking alive, like at least the product, backed it up, right? At least the product backed it up in regards to, and it grew and grew and grew because of how good everything was, right? You saw like little kids go to school with frickin' t-shirts, right? And talking about people at work at the frickin' water cooler, talking about, did you just see Rock and Stone Cold and Vince McMahon and this frickin', right? Like, that's what I mean, man. Like, nobody's doing that shit anymore. Like, nobody is. So yeah, man, it's just the overinflation of numbers is crazy. So I have the numbers right here. This was global numbers for Monday Night Raw since January 6th, and this goes through February 17th. So January 6th, their numbers, they were ranked 4th globally and 5th in the United States. They had 5.9 million viewers. That was the first debut show, right? You fast forward now to this was February 17th. They were now ranked 10th globally and 5th in the United States. Their number is now 2.8 million. That was February 17th, bro. I mean, guys, I'm giving you numbers and facts, man. I'm telling you this right now. When you give people a reason to stick around and watch, people will tune in. And I've proven that on cable television as well, on the USA Network. You don't have to like what I'm saying, but the facts are just the facts, man. So, and that's all I'll say in regards to it. But so Cody's promo, I'll kind of get back to that, at least kind of make it brief, but which was interesting, right? The crowd was chanting, "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks." They're chanting for a guy that's not even in the arena. And Cody Rhodes is like, "Oh, keep chanting that because he needs to hear this," right? He's trying to like kind of spin it or whatever. And then he just kind of ends the promo. It's like, "All right, everybody, enjoy the show. Have a good night." I'm like, that's how you're selling your matchup with Cena? It was fucking weird. I'm sorry, man. It was really odd. So yeah, man, just really just odd segments that are not achieving anything really at all. But Chad Gable, let me just bring him up real quick. Him in this lucha mask.
God damn it.
So
yeah, I totally forgot about this.
Man, I wonder who this person in this mask is, man. It's
that's not even the bad part of it, man. It's
really not. It's not. No, but
let me take it, and hopefully we get to Penta here, right? But if this whole thing is just to get to Rey Mysterio and the LWO, come on, bro, come on, man. So that's Oh, Jesus Christ!
I feel you, man. Listen, Chad Gable. Listen, he's a comedic gem when he can, and he also can play a serious role, which is why I love Chad Gable. This was silly, but listen, Chad Gable is great. And look, I'm not saying that I'm interested in this at all, and nor do I say it's going to be good, but because Chad Gable deserves so much more than this kind of silly type of stuff. Because it is kind of silly if we're all being honest with ourselves, right? Of like wearing the lucha mask, like, oh, that wasn't me, and all this stuff, and like you see like the other person,
American-made
lucha mask, and it is kind of right. I mean, like clearly, guys.
I mean, that's I like that part of it. It's just like you built this whole segment, and he's got to go to Mexico to find this and conquer the luchadors and whatever.
Right.
And he comes back for a segment. And I love Ray. It's not, but I mean, the LWO, I mean, come on.
Right. I want to give a shout out to New York and MSG, right? Because there were glimpses of starting a "This is awesome" chant. You heard it from like a bunch of schmucks in the crowd, and then the New York just completely shut it down. They weren't like, because you would hear like slowly, and they would get bigger and louder. "This is awesome!" Like in this tornado tag. New York was like, "Nah, bro, we ain't following up with that." So hey, New York, I'm proud of y'all. As from one fellow New Yorker to another, thank you for not buying into that stupid fucking "This is awesome" chant, man. I'm so sick of everybody chanting like "This is awesome." And I get it. You're there to enjoy the show. I completely understand it. But like as a wrestling community, like we gotta change up some chants or something. Like not everything can just be so fucking awesome, right? Like Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, like we're going to compare like that "This is awesome" chant or "holy shit" chants to a nonsensical tornado tag with LWO and the New Day. Like stop, man. Like the match was not awesome. Like let's be fucking real here. If you want to enjoy it, cool. But like but we want to save as a wrestling community, like make you use that chant to when you actually feel like, wow, like it's captivating you. Like this is truly awesome. That wasn't fucking like, and New York was not buying it. Like, nah, man, like they were dead silent and they slowly faded away. There was like a handful of people that tried to start up the chant. Come on, guys. This is awesome. And it's like, I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
You want a real reaction if your shit is good or not? Go to MSG, baby.
Go to MSG. Exactly, bro. Exactly. I think like Cody Rhodes, when he was like telling the crowd to like, oh, keep chanting that because like he Cena needs to hear it, and the crowd's like, bro, don't tell us what to freaking do. New Yorkers do not like when you tell us what to fucking do, bro. I'm just saying. So I love New York for that, man. So I'm like, thank you, man. Thank you for not starting up that chant because I can't stand it. Because I hear it all the time with matches. I'm like, I'm watching this match and I'm thinking like, this is getting a "This is awesome" chant. Like, what are we? Where's the bar? Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, and we'll get to the main event. Raquel Rodriguez, I mean, gets a big W over Bayley. Now, this is a mixed bag, right? On one end, Raquel, she's going to get a matchup, for the women's intercontinental title. I mean, shoot, we need heels in this company. So
I'm almost saying, put that title on her, man.
I mean, seriously,
cool
at least put her in a few. Listen, you give her some momentum after that tag title match against Bianca and Naomi, man. You're gonna need heels outside of who are the top heels for females? Nia Jax, Liv Morgan, and they've been in and around the title
Naomi
picture.
I guess,
and I guess Naomi in the near future. Guys, who are your top bona fide heels? Right, Nia Jax, she can't be taken seriously because she was feuding with Tiffany, and she decided to just jump over to Rhea's title. She lost that. She jumps back over to Tiffany's title. She's lost that. So her credibility is fucking gone. So freaking Nia Jax, what are we doing with her? And then Liv Morgan, right? Liv Morgan's still great, but let's face it. I mean, she's lost the championship now. I mean, she's still a good talent, but if Liv Morgan is the only bona fide heel that you have, and Chelsea Green, right? Chelsea Green, who is winning this championship, but she's getting cheers and beloved reactions, so she wouldn't even know that she's even a heel, but she is putting on damn good work as a heel. But outside of maybe those two, right? Who is running amok in this women's division as a heel right now? The answer is nobody.
Yeah.
So we need heels, man. So on one end, I don't mind this decision. On one end for Bayley, it's really disappointing, Brian, because Bayley is still so damn good. And, we talk about, people say, oh, just turn her back as a heel. She was better as a heel. Guys, she can be a good baby face. You just have to book her properly and just put her in good storylines and just give a shit about her booking. But it seems to me, Brian, it's just Bayley is in that position to where she's just going to be putting over a bunch of talent, like people like Roxanne, and now people here like Raquel. I don't know. That's what it comes across, but I don't know. It's a mixed bag. Again, the matchup was fine. Again, it was a decent match for what it was. I like the fact that you did give this to Raquel to a degree, because again, we need heels in this company, going after titles instead of doing stupid fucking face versus face matchups with Lyra Valkyria on that championship, because it's driving me nuts. And then you rushed Ivy Niles matchup with Lyra, and you completely, nobody cares about that now because Lyra got the payoff. She won the match. So you really can't go back to that right now because nobody cares about it anymore. So I don't know, man. It's just everything in the women's division is all over the place. So if you're going to book Raquel to be I know it's in her. Listen, I get it. She hasn't been great, but I do think it's in her, man. I really want to see her rock.
I do too.
And maybe see what she has. Listen, and if it fails, it fails, right? You tried, you experiment with it, you move on. So
that's kind of what I'm saying right now, even with is it the IC title or the US title?
The IC title.
The IC title. Mm-hmm. So that's, I mean, at least for me, whatever, Valkyria hasn't, it captivated me in any way. The title hasn't really gotten off to any meaningful start. So that's kind of where I'm at. Okay, Raquel, she's in the faction with Liv. There's a lot of things you can do with that, her being the heel and, winning that match. There's just more you can do with that, I feel, than right now you're doing with Valkyria. So why not give it a shot? But Bayley, oh God, man, it's disappointing, man. I do feel she's entering a phase here in WWE where it's just she's kind of going to be kind of like Natty, so to speak, kind of just right. She's going to be out there a lot, maybe sometimes in tags and solos and just putting on really good matches, but no,
she's going to be there. She's just there.
Yeah. Yep. Right? Yep.
It's, I hate that I'm laughing at it, and but still,
she's the 4 horsewomen, man. She's still my favorite one, but that's where I think she is right now, man.
Absolutely, it's just,
or at least where WWE is putting her. I don't know.
No, that's how it comes across. It really truly does. Yeah. She's just put in the most random, most bizarre positions in this company as of late, ever since she lost her title, and she's been doing jack shit ever since then. It's just very very odd. They're trying to have her build up Roxanne, and again, this matchup with Raquel. So I don't know, man. But anyway, man, let's get to this main event. This was a steel cage match. This was Seth Rollins against the chick magnet, CM Punk, Phil Brooks himself. So these dudes did not waste any time. They came to blows as soon as CM Punk hit the ring. I lost count for how many finishers were hit in this match and how many many false finishes were in this matchup. I mean, Lord have mercy, man. This was wild. And listen, a decent steel cage match. I mean, outside of all the false finishes and outside of exchanging maneuvers or exchanging finishers, right, with the stomp and the GTS, using each other's finishers and whatnot. So the false finishes were a little bit kind of ridiculous, but outside of that, I mean, this was a fine steel cage match. I thought, again, these two, I mean, it's Punk and Rollins, they, with the history that they do have, they've, I'm sure, developed into a good working relationship to where, they can put on a really good performance, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, they're flipping off each other like, hey, here's the door. You can walk out if you want. And they both just flip each other the bird. And then Netflix blacks it out, by the way, completely black it out for couple of several seconds.
That's so weird. They can say fuck, but they'll blur out the middle finger.
That's that was so fucking weird. I think they blurred it out when Punk said he also he threw out an F-bomb when he was making his entrance down the ring, and they blurred that out. It was very weird. So yeah, man, again, it wasn't the best steel cage match, but it wasn't bad at all. Now let's get to the ending of this match. You had Seth Rollins, who's pretty much hitting everything in the kitchen sink. This is what I mean, man, about the false finish. It was just very weird. It was kind of just a little bit too much, at least for me. It was just very odd because we know that these, I mean, now I don't want to.
The first few were fantastic because it's before Roman or before he comes out there, you're like, okay, who's going to win this match? The first 3, 4.
Right.
Cool.
Exactly. But when you keep doing it, it's just all right, how prestigious is this is this move really a finisher or is it just a signature move at this point? You know what I'm saying, man? It's just it's kind of like when Seth Rollins was doing the Hell in a Cell match with Bray. And I hate going back to this match because I love Bray, and this is the one match that I don't want to even think about or go back to. But the nonstop curve stomps to the Fiend, to where not only was this a detriment to the match and just how kind of silly it came across, but you're completely creating a detriment to the finisher. The fact that it's doing
that fucked Bray and Seth, both of them. That was garbage.
That was absolutely. So just the overexposing of the finishers, man, because not only do you have to protect the characters, you have to protect the finisher. If you want to do it once, twice, maybe 3 times at time, to a finisher to kind of protect the other opponent, to say oh wow, it took 2 finishers to finally put this guy out. I get it. But when you keep doing it, man, it gets ridiculous. It's Punk and it's Rollins. This is not, again, Oba Femi, Moose, Brock Lesnar. We're not. Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm just trying to be fair. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, no,
So the ending of the match, right? So Seth Rollins is hitting everything in the kitchen sink, and all of a sudden he's grabbed from behind and he's pulled out of the ring, out of the cage door. So Seth Rollins wins this match, but he was pulled out the ring by a returning Roman Reigns, the OTC himself. So the bell rings, Seth Rollins wins the match, and Roman Reigns completely obliterates both of these people, both Seth and Punk. We'll get to Punk in a second. Punk. So he curve stomps. He delivers a curve stomp to Rollins, his own move. Then he goes to do it onto the steel steps the same way that he did it at the Royal Rumble, getting his payback or whatever. Keep in mind, guys, these are 3 faces also in the ring. These are all 3 faces. Both Rollins, Reigns, and Punk. All of them are faces. I just want to also make that clear. But so officials and a security, they come out, they try to separate Rollins and Punk. Or excuse me, Rollins and Roman. And then all of a sudden, Roman glances over into the ring and Paul Heyman is attending to Punk. Of course, their history, right? Punk is a former Paul Heyman guy. There's this favor, right, that Punk or Paul Heyman supposedly has for Punk. And Roman Reigns, he's it's that look you get when like your girl is like talking to another man. like, what are you?
The fuck?
I know damn well that you are not talking to, like, what is you doing now? So he enters the ring and he obliterates CM Punk, takes him out, delivers the spear, and Roman Reigns stands tall in the steel cage, and that's how Monday Night Raw comes off the air. Brian, let me just get this out the way. I'll try to make it short. This was fucking weird. I'm sorry. This was really weird, and I'm going to tell you why this was weird. I get the story. I get it, right? You're now tapping into Punk and Roman, right? The animosity now because of Paul Heyman. You know, it's like, oh, he's my wise man. He used to be your Paul Heyman. I completely get it. And you tie in the favor. I completely understand that. But guys, clearly we're now teasing what? This triple threat, right? That I've been dreading now for weeks now. Clearly this is what we're doing now, right? Guys, I want to make this abundantly clear. This doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. If you want to do Punk and Roman, Brian, do that separately. These are all separate feuds in a triple threat fighting for absolutely nothing. Nothing. Mm-hmm. There's no title. There's no title. There's no nothing. And there's three faces. Three faces. Rollins, Roman, and Punk are all faces. So you had people chanting CM Punk. You had people singing along with Seth Rollins' theme. And at the end of the night, people are cheering and clamoring for Roman. What is that doing for Rollins and Punk? Like, can somebody go this? It's called, guys, splitting your audience to where it's not doing anything for Punk, who is one of your faces, getting taken out by your top face in Roman. How does that make sense? How? I don't understand. Oh, well, James, but Rollins can potentially turn heel. Or James, Seth Rollins is already a heel. No, he's not. He's still pandering to the crowd as he's a face. Yeah. He's still a baby face. He hasn't turned heel yet. So for people that tell me that, James, he's already a heel, bullshit. What the fuck are you talking about? No, he's not. These are all three faces, you dumb fuck. What are you talking about? Guys, this is just weird, man. It's like, Brian, you know why this is stupid? This is like, again, I talk about something not being fought for, right? Like a championship. That's like having a UFC fight and just adding a third person in there because he can't stand the other two people in the ring. That's not how it works. Like you keep these feuds separate. If you want to do Roman and Seth, do that one-on-one. If you want to do Punk and Roman in the future, do that one-on-one. It has nothing to do with Seth. Roman and Seth has nothing to do with Punk. Guys, this is common sense and logic. Mm-hmm. But this is Triple H's booking, where common sense and logic, it's just thrown out the fucking window. So, and this is what we're doing, man. When you could have, Brian, you could have went the route to go Punk and Rollins. You could have saved this matchup for WrestleMania. Because I've even said that since day one. You could have saved that matchup. You did not have to burn this matchup twice now. And the way that you're booking Jacob Fatu over on SmackDown, you could have had Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu for WrestleMania. How badass does that sound, bro? If you book it correctly, it's sitting in your lap. Or the face-off that they had building up towards War Games, right? For Survivor Series. Like, and people were excited about that. Dude, Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu. And now we're going to act all excited that Jacob Fatu is going to fight solo. Like anybody needs to see that or wants to see that. Stop, man. Like, you guys, listen, you guys don't have to like what I'm saying, but you guys know I'm fucking right, man. You know I'm right, bro. This doesn't make any sense. I get the story. I get what they're trying to do. But that doesn't mean that you throw all three of these motherfuckers in this match. It doesn't make sense. So, and that's it. I've spoken a lot, Brian. What are your takes about this main event and Roman Reigns as a whole?
Yeah, this kind of is what I was dreading too. Kind of for similar reasons, but also kind of like you said. I mean, these are separate feuds, and if you do them separately and tell the story right, both of them are money makers. Both of them can be 3 months, whatever feuds. This is my biggest problem with it, is you are this close to Mania, and we talked about it last week.
Mm-hmm.
You have not touched Roman and Punk until now.
No, exactly.
It's too fucking late. Like you're you're just rushing this.
Exactly.
And now you're taking these two stories that could be fucking golden.
Yes.
And you're throwing them all together in one thing, and you're giving both of them half-ass. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you, man. Fucking finally, man.
It's especially this Punk and Roman feud with the favor from Heyman. That in itself could be so fucking good.
Absolutely.
And we know the history of Rollins and Roman and the Shield and whatever. That could be so fucking good. But you're telling me you're gonna what are we now? 38 days away from Mania, and now you're trying to rush this. Now you're trying to gonna the whole thing with Roman and Punk and Heyman.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna try to rush that now in 30 days, and it's.
And what? And you're gonna rush. And you're gonna rush. You're gonna rush Seth Rollins to just be the heel at this point now, like because you need a heel in this matchup. Like, guys, it's lackluster. It's not booked correctly, bro. Just because. Oh, but James, but they're all your top stars in the company. It's gonna be a great triple threat. Okay, cool. If you like it, that's fine. That doesn't mean, but you still gotta book it properly. That just because you're it's like booking something out of a video game. Oh, let me just randomly put 3 of my top stars in WWE just in a triple threat. It's like a video game. Like, let's do this exhibition fight.
It's a dream match. It's a dream match, like a fucking
Like, exactly, bro. Like, anybody can just do that shit.
And if you were again, and I think I said this a week or two ago, like if you were gonna put Punk, it's still, the main event, Mania, blah, blah, blah. Like, at this point, if you're going to have that triple threat of whatever, then I feel like Punk is better suited for Cody and Cena than Rollins, Roman, and Punk right now. That match just does not need to happen right now at this Mania.
Man. You put Punk and Roman for
or you just take it again, like even if it was Roman and Rollins, if you wanted to do that and follow and have that be your one-on-one Mania match, okay, fine.
As Seth Rollins as the heel. You should have turned, if you were going to do that, have Seth be the heel, but he's not. He's the face. And you're going to rush his fucking heel turn. Guys, like, I don't understand how, like, this is not rocket science. Like, I don't understand how people, if it's one thing to like something, but if you're trying to enable this booking, like that's just where you lose me, because you don't have to be this wrestling wizard to know that this shit doesn't make sense. Like, we have to say something and be honest and be like, bro, like this is not done properly because it doesn't make sense. They're 3 faces. They're not fighting for anything. And they're all separate feuds. It doesn't make sense, man, at all.
I'm almost at this point, but I mean, really, from the Roman Heyman Punk storyline, and I know it's older and there's always a injury risk and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, that is a fucking feud and a story that could be a year-long story. Those 3 right there, that from this Mania to next Mania, that could be a feud and a story to where next year, the favor and the main event, and it's one-on-one Roman and Punk. But then you still got The Rock in the mix and whatever. But I feel it's too late to start Punk and Roman for this Mania. It's just too late.
Yeah. I'm set like Punk and Roman at SummerSlam. If you want to do Punk and Roman, do that for SummerSlam, bro. That's the mat. That's where you do it at, bro. Punk and Roman. It's not hard. Guys, it's not fucking hard, bro. If you want to do long-term booking, long-term storytelling, give Punk and Roman the spotlight, the first, collision, no pun intended to AEW collision, but the first interaction between these two, give them the proper spotlight and do it one-on-one. Don't half-ass
with Heyman.
Right, with Heyman involved, right.
Fuck,
you don't need, why is Seth involved? It's fucking weird. And then you add in with Roman and Seth, and then you're wondering, well, why is CM Punk involved? Guys, listen, man, the amount of people, Brian, that I see that, again, defend this crap, because I've seen it all day. and like, I feel like, it's scary. Like, it really is scary when people defend. Listen, it's one thing to like something. I will never, Brian, come on here and, go after somebody for liking something. Never in my life will I ever do that. That's how they like, that's how you feel. But when you start to enable booking that is just simply not good, that's a detriment to the talent. It's not doing anything for the talent, and you're trying to defend that, and you're trying to base that off as facts. Like, that's where you lose me. Like, if that makes sense. Like, it's just it's just like people defend.
It's like, I'll enjoy watching a match with those three in it. It's going to be an entertaining match, but does that mean should that be the main event at WrestleMania? No.
Right. No. Exactly right. It's so like, oh my God. I don't even know why sometimes I wish I didn't have Instagram and TikTok sometimes with some of these fucking fans. I'm just going to say that right now.
I'm glad I don't.
Man. I mean, listen, and for guys and people, they feel a certain type of way with both of us, with some things that both of us may say that people just don't like. I mean, listen, you guys know at the end of the day, if you've been on this platform for 2+ years now, right? Like, we will say things to where, we'll talk about, hey, I like this. This is good. This is how I personally feel. But then it's time to like talk about like, all right, this shit is stupid. This shit's weird. I don't know what we're doing here. That's just pure honesty. And that's just just being honest and just talking the facts of the situation. Right. And if there's people that are just here to like hear us just, talking negatively about the problem. No, that's not how we work either. Right. Because we talk about being fair, right? When something is good, we'll say it's good. But when something is bad, we will shit on it and we will talk about it's bad. But if you guys think that it's because like, oh, we're just being negative just to be negative, or just don't watch it anymore if you don't like it. Guys, I sleep like a fucking baby at night. I have a great life. I have 2 great jobs. Yeah. Like I'm surrounded by amazing people every single day. I'm not like power bombing a fucking barista at a fucking Starbucks because the show, I didn't like Monday Night Raw. Like, we're not taking it to that level because we're criticizing it, but we're just being honest because we're just passionate wrestling fans, man. At the end of the day, we're always going to like this stuff, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to just being fair and calling it for what it is, we got to do that at the end of the day. So, but at the same time, we're not just going to be negative because a lot of people just like to hear negativity and banter, right?
Yeah,
so if you're just here for that, if you think that that's what we do, then I'm sorry. Like,
fuck off.
You're on the wrong platform. You can fuck off, right? But if you're those people to where like, you know what, James, I value your takes. I value Brian's takes. Like, I want to hear your guys' reaction. We love you. Seriously, we love that shit, man. We love you being a part of that community. That's the people that we want to be a part of this platform. So I hope that makes sense. I just wanted to get that out there. I know that took longer than it needed to, but
man.
So here, let's talk real quick, and that's Monday Night Raw. So I'm sure there's going to be much more to talk about with Rollins, Punk, and Roman and that whole situation.
Rock, if when he comes back, whenever. Cena back next week.
Exactly. So real quick, man, just AEW Dynamite, real quick, man. So Hurt Syndicate, or technically MVP. This is, again, talking AEW Dynamite now, as of right now. It just went off the air about 20 minutes ago. MJF was in a segment with MVP. MVP is trying to recruit MJF to the Hurt Syndicate, and MJF denies the request. So, of course, we have to go back and watch the show to see how this transpired and everything and whatnot. They're also promoting this Eliminator tournament for AEW Dynasty that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So they're doing like this good old mini tournament that's going to fill up the show over the next couple of weeks and everything. Yeah. Nick Wayne speaks up against Christian Cage. This was in a backstage segment with Renee Paquette. So Nick Wayne is finally, I guess, stepping up to his father, quote unquote,
right.
Christian Cage or whatnot. No Swerve Strickland in this show. Toni Storm cut a promo talking about this is a new beginning. She cut a promo on the stage, and that was pretty much it. Just a stage promo from Toni Storm, talking and recapping her matchup with Mariah May and whatnot. And then, tournament matches for this Eliminator tournament coming up for AEW Dynasty. So, Brian, what are your immediate thoughts so far? And of course, Mox cut a promo as well. Kind of, again, recapping the match at Revolution as well. So a lot of these promos were kind of recapping AEW Revolution and everything. But what are your takes, man, in regards to so far in Dynamite, at least what you're able to hear?
Definitely the most intriguing is MVP and MJF. I mean, I don't see MJF isn't a good fit for the Hurt Syndicate, so I'm assuming that's going to get ready to set up a feud either with him and Lashley or him and Benjamin, maybe. I don't know.
That's kind of weird.
But I mean, because he's not joining the Hurt Syndicate, so I mean, I don't, unless it's setting up a feud. Why was that even? I don't know. But I got to go see that segment. Yeah.
I mean, I'll definitely check that out because it is technically two heels, so that's very interesting of how you were trying to portray that. Again, it's depending on. Again, we have to go back, of course, and watch how this whole segment was transpired. Of course, we don't want to jump the gun, but it does come across kind of weird to put two heels in this segment, but and then that's pretty much outside of that. So it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of substance from the show. It's just to promote this International Eliminator Tournament for AEW Dynasty. So this is going to determine Kenny Omega's new challenger for whoever wins this tournament. I will try to find the members of this tournament. But I guess, we'll talk about that in a different discussion for a different day, of course. We've already gone so much in the show, so that'll be interesting. And I'm sure maybe there'll be more discuss about AEW Dynamite, again, AEW Dynasty, of course, AEW All In coming up this summer. So it's going to be a lot of AEW stuff to talk about. But of course, we got a month away, man, from WrestleMania, man. And I'm sorry, outside of John Cena's heel turn, man, there has been legit nothing, bro. There has been absolutely just nothing to latch onto outside of maybe Bianca and Naomi, but you've already did the payoff with Jade just already obliterating Naomi. So your payoff is already done. So even if you're going to do a match, it's like, oh, but now I got to beat a match against you. Like you were pushed off of a fucking loading dock. You think it'd be bigger than just a wrestling match. That's just kind of weird. Because it was weird because that segment was so good. Mm-hmm. And you completely blow the playoff. Just have Naomi hightail it. And then that at least adds a little bit more suspense of Jade getting her hands on Naomi. It was just very weird, man. So even with that...
I have a feeling then, and you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, like, personally, like I would have just kept it as, either Bianca and Naomi, did it together, or it was Bianca. Now it's come out. It's Naomi.
Yeah.
It's just there's still something that, like, okay, you didn't do that by yourself. So you had mentioned a couple of names that maybe they're going to come up and be Naomi's backup, which could still be a possibility.
Yeah.
So
I guess, man.
I mean, if that's how okay.
And I've even said it for Bianca because, like, she was in the match, like when Jade Cargill was attacked, right? So it's kind of weird how you would say that it's also Bianca being, I guess, the master.
At this point, it's not Bianca. And so that's what I'm saying. At this point, it's got to be.
I'm telling you,
who did you mention?
Jackson and Lash Legend, probably.
Are
going to be the other two gals that are going to be alongside Naomi, because she's going to need backup because you want to promote, you want to build Jade as this beast, like shit, like Naomi, now being kind of like the cowardly, dastardly heel. Now you want to bring in some backup, and I mean, Lash Legend and Shakara Jackson, if you book it properly, it can do very, very well. But man, like, you could have just had Naomi retreat, man.
For sure.
Payoff, man. This is what I mean, man, about booking, bro. Like, the talent itself did such a great job, but when you get to Triple H and his booking, like, it makes no sense. Like, you completely just fucked up a really good thing here. And outside of that, Brian, outside of Cena's heel turn, which is all Brian Gerwitz in The Rock, by the way, Triple H maybe has like 10% of it, is because he's approving it. Outside of that, bro, there's nothing. Gunther doesn't even feel like we didn't even go over Gunther and Jey Uso. That's probably for the best, honestly. There's really nothing to go over there. Like, even Gunther, like, there's really no diabolical heels. Gunther was a tweener during this whole world championship run. So his entire run as champion has been completely just fucked at this point. So it's a mess, bro. It is an absolute mess. Like the card itself, there's just no matches outside of maybe John Cena and Cody that I'm like, wow, this feels like WrestleMania season. Like it just doesn't feel that way because of how you're booking everything. It just doesn't.
At this point, like the match card itself, like doesn't really excite me. Like the only thing I'm banking on is that, I mean, it's WrestleMania. There's going to be some shock, surprise, whatever.
Sure.
That's all I can hope for is that, because the build up, I mean, there's, like you said, the Cena turn and that's it, kind of, so, and that's going into it, it's like, all right, I'm going to watch it for hopefully to be shocked in some way that,
Absolutely. And that's the thing, man. Like you cannot just rely on just John Cena and The Rock being there on television to kind of like add some spark to the show. Triple H is like after freaking Elimination Chamber, was like, oh, does it feel like WrestleMania season now? I'm like, okay. I mean, maybe for one night it was a start of Elimination Chamber, but like, bro, you're a week in and you've gone backwards, not forward, bro. Like you can't just rely on John Cena and The Rock just to come on in and just make everything feel like WrestleMania again. Like you got to actually know what the fuck you're doing or actually give a shit about what you're doing. And it's just like everything, bro, is just a mess. And the numbers prove it. The metrics prove it. It just backs up my point in everything that we've discussed. So, but that is it, man. Almost 2 hours into the show. This was a jam-packed show. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it for whoever is listening or watching this episode right now. Of course, as always, follow us on Instagram and TikTok. That is ruthless_talk. Make sure you guys check us out on all of our platforms to watch all of our podcasts that is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, man, and spread the word. Hit that notification bell so that way you do not miss a single episode. So we will talk about SmackDown coming up this week and a bunch of other maybe breaking news stories. Who knows? Sometimes when we do these podcasts, something in the wrestling world happens and then we have to talk about it later on in the week or the following week or whatever. Who the hell knows? But we will talk about SmackDown. We'll definitely continue to keep up on AEW. We will have the WrestleMania roundtable that's coming up pretty soon now as we're getting closer to April. We will be recording that as of April 12th. So make sure you guys stay tuned for when that episode drops out. We got a bunch of great content creators joining the show. And of course, our WrestleMania reviews, plural, right? Reviews, both night 1 and night 2. We'll be both talking about those episodes. And of course, we got AEW, we got AEW Dynasty, AEW All In for this summer. So a lot's to come. We just cross our fingers that it's going to captivate our attention at the end of the day. So Brian, final thoughts, man, before we end this show.
Once again, another great AEW pay-per-view. I mean, there's really like 3, 4, even 5 storylines that in that company that are really good right now. And if they keep on the track, it can really, really be good shit. As far as WrestleMania and WWE, I mean, we'll see Cena showing up next week on Raw and what he has to say. And I'm sure that'll give, a little bit of a pulse and feel like WrestleMania, but we'll see how that goes, man.
Does he bring back Thugonomics, bro? Or some type of new theme song?
I don't think it... Because
you would got to think, right? I mean,
I wonder, like, does he come back? Because I mean, he can't come back with the hustle, loyalty, respect.
No, you can't do that, right? Yeah.
Right. So I don't know, man. I mean, what is it? Does he come out in like a a suit or?
He's gonna come out with a bald head in a suit, just like the. He's gonna like freaking the corporate. He sold his soul to The Rock, so he's gonna be his soul is like The Rock's freaking corporate entity or whatever. No, I don't think it's.
I mean, he's going bald anyway. You might as well go.
I was gonna say he does got that nasty bald spot, man. You might as well just go all in with that shit, bro. I don't know, man. But yeah, it'll be interesting, man. Again, new theme music, maybe some type of a new
first time. I mean, this will be the first time that we see him as as a heel. You know, this is his first heel promo ever. Ever, man. So, yeah.
The first time in 22 years was the last time Cena has been a heel during, again, his Thugonomics day. So,
yeah.
Technically, but I guess. But at least in, not the, I don't know what you would call it, right? But the rapper shtick, right? To where it's kind of
not since John Cena became John Cena.
John Cena, yeah. So I guess this will be technically the first, I guess, to a degree. So yes, but it'll be interesting, man. But again, man, I just hope that they just don't keep relying on Cena and The Rock to build up to WrestleMania, man. Because if we're doing that, then we're in for a bumpy ride, man, and that's really saying something. But that is going to do it for today's episode, everybody. Appreciate you guys, as always. My name is James Porcelli.
I'm Brian Thomas.
Until next time, there will be a next time. Your boys are signing off, saying salute.
Peace out.
And take care, everybody. Top guys, we are out. The skin is bright and pale. The pain will never fail. And so we go back.